Hey, it's Sloth here. I'm so glad you came by. I'll get the kettle brewing while we get caught up. For those who don't know, I have a phobia of moths and butterflies. Just thinking about them gives me the heebie-jeebies. If one flies near me, I will run away so fast you'd think I was part of the Allen family. Yes, I'm aware it's a silly phobia, and most moths and butterflies are completely harmless, and objectively, they're very pretty. But here we are. My sister actually used to have a pretty silly phobia too, but she's basically gotten over that now, and I can't be the only one with a silly fear. So I've been trying to take some baby steps to get over it. I now own a moth enamel pin that's on the bag I take everywhere for the exposure therapy. Which is what I'm trying to do with these designs. I'm hoping that mixing them with something I love doing, character designs, will make them less creepy to me. I see so many cool designs based off of moths too, so I've been wanting to try my hand at it for a while. And I thought mixing it with the hyper cutesiness of magical girls would be a good way to dampen some of that fear factor for me. Side note here, but please don't send me any photos or videos of moths or butterflies after this. If for whatever reason you really want to show me a neat moth for a possible future design or something, I'd prefer it if you just say the name of it and I'll look it up myself. End of serious note, thank you in advance. Anyways, back to the premise. There'll be 5 girls in all to make up a 5-man band so that they all have a role. I'm going to be doing a magical girl and a civilian form for each of them. We'll only be doing the first 3 of the girls in this video, so part 2 will cover the other 2 girls and the main villain of this hypothetical story, so stick around for that. And with that out of the way, let's get into the designs. So, first up we have the Rosy Maple moth. They're the smallest of the great silk moths, and the reason I wanted to do these designs, because this is an animal begging to become a cutesy magical girl if I've ever seen one. So I present to you Primrose Cassidy Carlett, also known as Rosy Maple. She's the leader of our little moth brigade. I'm a big fan of ordinary objects as weapons in media, to be honest. I think there's just something so fun and whimsical about it. So each girl is going to have a weapon based on their moth's adaptations that appear as children's toys. All of their weapons also have their moth on them, just as a fun detail. For Rosy Maple, she gets a yo-yo because I thought a string weapon would suit a silk moth quite well. Primrose is also the most creative of the team and comes up with solutions no one else would even think of, so it follows she has the most versatile weapon too. In her civilian life, Primrose is the captain of the cheerleading team, and incredibly outgoing and energetic. She's very well liked around the school for her kind nature, always happy to help anyone. She's the kind of girl who seems to hang out with everyone, and is always up for ranting about her new favourite TV show or 900-page fantasy novel. And she constantly has like 30 tabs open for AO3 fics she'll inevitably forget to read. However, she can also get carried away with her fantasies and whims and struggles to think through consequences, so her arc would be about learning responsibility. I could imagine her trying to recreate cheerleading moves she's seen in movies and accidentally pushing her team too far, and initially not taking her responsibility as a magical girl seriously, seeing it more like a game until she sees others in danger and begins to realise the threat she's facing. Because of her daydreaming, she also struggles at school, finding it very hard to concentrate when there are so many more exciting things to do. This has made her sort of internalise the idea that she's stupid, but over the course of being the team leader, she'd realise that she doesn't have to be book smart to be intelligent. And her teammates help her learn ways to revise that work better for her, like doing flashcards and reciting mnemonic devices in the middle of fights. The origin of the girl's powers remains a mystery for much of the early story. One day, Primrose was walking home from cheerleading practice, daydreaming as usual, when she heard loud crashes and yelling coming from the park's astroturf. She immediately rushed towards the site, worrying that someone was in danger. When she arrived, however, she saw an older girl dressed in a black and navy cape shaped like moth or butterfly wings, carrying an odd box. She was fighting a giant robot made of cogs and oil which leaked everywhere as it tried to crush her. The girl looked to be in pretty rough shape and was obviously losing. Primrose tried to help by throwing a rock at the creature or pull it away from the girl, but it was a meaningless attempt as the creature didn't seem to register her at all. The girl, however, watched with shock and heavy thought as her warnings for Prim to run went unheeded. Soon the fight was over, the robot having caught the other girl, it began to teleport away, when the girl threw the box to Primrose and told her to take care of it. The box contained children's toys, each with a moth or butterfly engraved onto it. Not long after that, smaller robots began to come after Primrose, trying to steal the box back. The first time it happened, she tried to defend herself long enough to run away, but as she did so, the yo-yo began whispering inside her head to take it up. Sure enough, when she did, she was transformed. She doesn't know who that girl was, or where these powers or robots have come from, but she's determined to keep her promise to the girl to defend the box, hoping that one day she might be able to rescue her too. One of my favourite things about magical girls, superheroes, and other such urban fantasies is the characters struggling to balance out their ordinary and magical lives and secret identity nonsense, so I'd make those key aspects of this hypothetical show. As Rosy Maple, she feels the most confident, not having to be bogged down by stresses about future careers or exams, and gets to always be doing new exciting stuff. She loves working on a team and learning all about her new friends and finding ways to get them to shine and feel confident too, so it's her ideal life. But as Primrose, she's constantly having to balance her schoolwork, cheerleading, and very large social circle, which with all the new stress can feel very overwhelming for her. On top of that, she feels like the future is racing closer and closer, and everyone expects her to suddenly be a top student and know what she wants to do with her life before university gets much closer. Design-wise, I wanted to really focus on the shape language for these girls. I'm guilty of sort of neglecting this element somewhat when I'm doing contemporary designs, so this is doubling as practice to get out of that. Prim here's main shape is circles, since she's playful and naive. Of course I had to make her super fluffy to match her moth. I leaned very femme with most of these designs, but I decided to make Prim hyper femme, since let's be honest, a pink fluffy butterfly-like creature is about as hyper femme as you can get. So she's got a lot of bows, flowers, frills and pom-poms. I also gave her makeup and acrylic nails. I was originally going to base the girls' ethnicities off of where their moths are from, but quickly realised that almost all of them are from North America or Canada, so that wouldn't really work. So I just used a random country spinner instead. Primrose is Egyptian, so I made sure to give her some large bouncy curls, since I saw them pop up a lot when I was looking at references of Egyptian girls. I've sort of based this in America, what with there being cheerleaders and all, but I don't know enough about the US to pick a state which fits the vibe, so if you're American, let me know where you think the story should be set. I was planning to change the girls' hair colour in their magical girl designs to match their moths more, but Rosy Maple just looked like a pink blob, so I kept her hair dark brown and just gave her some pink and yellow highlights instead, so she'd still have a sense of unity with the other girl's hair, who does change. When I was doing my designs, I did debate if the magical girl form should have wings or not, but decided it'd make the designs a bit too cluttered, so I feel like in this version their wings are a power-up they unlock later, but they do get antennae. My main thought process on most of these designs was making them hyper cutesy, you'll see the exceptions later. Most of my female characters tend to lean more butch, so it was fun to get to do some really femme designs for a change of pace. I made her civilian outfit look a bit like a cheerleading style dress, with a light yellow cardigan, which she wears off the shoulder to mimic the yellow stripe on the Rosy Maple moth, as well as a stripe along the hem of her dress to do the same. For full fluffiness, she has a fluffy neckline and leg warmers. I see these a lot on Pinterest, and I imagine they'd make your shins sweat in ways you've never even imagined, but who am I to deny the power of floof? For accessories, she's got platform Mary Janes, a big pink hair bow, keeping up her ponytail, and a little circular gem necklace. Obviously her main colour is pink. For her magical girl form, I used her corset section and frills to mimic that yellow stripe. The Rosy Maple moth, for its cuteness, doesn't actually have much going on design-wise, so I tried to roll with what it does have. Her fluffy collar is to mimic the moth's fuzzy head, and her pink frills off of her gloves are supposed to look a bit like the moth's wings. For her hair, like I said, I gave her some pink and yellow highlights, but I also put some sections on either side into bubble braids, just for the extra interest and to shove in some more circles. Her boots are platformed in this form too, but they also have a heel as well. The girls' height differences are based off of their moth sizes, so Prim is the second shortest of the group at 5'2", and magical girls are practically obligated to be teens or tweens, so Prim is 15 years old. Small details with her eyes, I made her have some subtle catchlights which are shaped like hearts, and I give her lashes that, say it with me, are circles. As usual, I used a block colour when putting in and blending out my shading, to better see if I was getting the form correct, and I put in a bajillion lighting and overlay layers. I was planning to just use a multiply layer on these, since I'll end up with 11 designs in all, including the civilian forms, but I just couldn't help myself. She's a magical girl, she needs to be bright and shiny, okay? And with some finishing touches like her freckles I continuously kept forgetting, we're done with Rosy Maple. Here's what she looks like up close. As always, let me know what you think, and which is your favourite girl or design at the end of the video. I think I caught her bubbly personality well with these designs and poses, but I do think she has the most generic magical girl outfit out of the bunch since I did her first. We'll just pretend it's because Prim would imagine herself in the platonic ideal of a magical girl costume. I'm going to order these designs based off of the order that the girls join the team, so next up we have the Io moth. They have a stinger as caterpillars, but as adults have an eye-like pattern which glints in the dark to scare off predators. I gave this gal a spinning top that works as a stinger to jab and injure enemies. As the second largest of the moths, I made her the big guy. If you're unfamiliar with the 5-man band trope, this isn't always literal, and usually just refers to the hardest hitter or tankiest group member. In this case though, it is pretty literal, as she's the strongest in muscles and raw power. I introduced to you Mali Bunmei, otherwise known under the alias Io. All the girls' names are based off of flowers, since they're pollinators. Mali means jasmine. My favourite member of any magical girl group growing up was always the tomboy one, which we're going to choose not to analyse too much. So of course I couldn't make my own team without one. Mali is a basketball player known for getting into fights around school. She's brash and impulsive and has quite the scary reputation for her short temper. I'm not a sports guy myself. I know you would never be able to guess what with my hyper-masculine facade. So I wasn't sure what sport to pick for her for ages. You'll see me playing around with a couple different ones in the sketch before deciding on basketball. Despite her tough exterior, Mali is actually quite the softie. She loves cutesy stuff like collectible keychains, cat cafes, and any melodramatic romance program she can find. She's very into the power of friendship type of shows and probably collects My Little Ponies and Little's Pet Shop figures. She may come across as hard-headed and stubborn, but ultimately she can't resist puppy dog eyes, which is often how Prim drags her into her antics. I imagine her as the easily flustered type. She doesn't really think before she speaks and acts though, which causes her to do stuff like shout out one-liners in fights, and then get horribly embarrassed about what she just said. But god damn it, she'll get her cool one-liner one day, even if she has to die of embarrassment first. She hates bullies and thinks with her fists, which is how she gets into so many fights. Unfortunately, as much as this helps the victims, it doesn't really earn Mali any points, just being thought of as a hothead and overly reactionary. Which, to be fair, she absolutely is. She doesn't really respect authority either by default, and argues with her teachers a ton. As you can imagine, this goes great for her and never lands her in trouble. Mali is actually a transfer student who switched schools mid-year after being expelled from her last one for fighting. She doesn't really have many friends due to this and her bad reputation. She tries to act tough and like it doesn't bother her, but in reality she's very lonely and just wants some friends. Most people just find her to be too intense. Even within the basketball team, she doesn't have any friends, despite being an excellent team player, since she barely attends practices, always being stuck in detention for some reason or another. Much like Primrose, she struggles in classes, often just skipping them entirely to avoid her teachers and classwork that just frustrates and confuses her. She's sort of internalised the idea that she's a bad kid and generally a burden, so is just clocked out of most areas of her life, but her strong moral compass and want to look out for the little guy is overpowering. Her arc would be about learning ways to healthily manage her anger and engage in life without punishing her emotions or sacrificing her values, while still helping others. Early days of the team, when it's just Io and Rosy Maple, are very chaotic, as they sort of enable each other's irresponsibility when it comes to small threats as magical girls. They're a pretty effective duo though, due to Rosy's quick thinking and Io's pure strength, so they can pretty easily take down the small fry villains that used to make Rosy Maple struggle, which of course only makes their cockiness worse. Much like Prim, Mali enjoys being Io, finding it to be a great outlet and genuinely loves helping people. She doesn't mind the outfits and the sparkles either. It's a dream come true situation. She tends to try to play into the cool hero archetype as Io, hence her truly awful one-liners. Unlike Prim, she doesn't find it very difficult to balance out being Io and Mali as a general rule. The outlet of being a magical girl and eventually the friends that come with it actually help her to manage her emotions more effectively, and approach her day-to-day life with a more clear head, and being more satisfied in life, now feeling like she has a purpose. Her and Primrose became friends pretty quickly after Primrose started to hear the rumours about her. While cautious at first due to these rumours and Mali's standoffish attitude, Prim was determined to befriend her. Mostly because she thought she'd make a really cool barbarian or strength fighter in the campaign she was running. The cheerleading girls she'd run it for had all chosen to be spellcasters, so she was getting pretty desperate for a tank. While this was happening, as Rosy Maple, she also began to struggle to defeat her villains, who seemed to be growing stronger, and realised that she very literally needed a tank. After seeing Mali save a student from a bully, she decided to entrust her with the spinning top and her secret. Since then, the two have been a formidable, if unlikely, duo. I can really imagine them bonding over Trapple Bone together. In terms of the design, MacLeod was for sure the hardest. I usually only do a sketch or two to decide designs for these videos, but for MacLeod I ended up making tons of little revisions. A lot of them are actually during this drawing, as I'm sure you've seen. I was originally going to give her a little capelet, but I hated how it looked, and some fluffy red belt chains to mimic the fluffy bottom wings of the Io moth, but threw them out because they just felt odd. The hair in her civilian form had me feeling like Sisyphus, just constantly sketching, erasing and re-sketching. I was going to give her a bob so it matched her magical girl design more, but I just couldn't get it to work in a way I liked. I kept trying to experiment with different styles, but god did it take way too long to settle on what I liked. MacLeod's main shape is squares since she's a stubborn and loyal type, but with some subtle triangles in her civilian design to make her feel a little bit more intimidating. Her magical girl form is a little bit more curved and soft by comparison. She's got this cropped, I want to call it a bomber jacket, but I'm actually not sure what the distinction is, which I gave exaggerated shoulder pads. It's got these two eye-like circles which are present all over her design to imitate the eye patterns on the moth. I gave her a v-neck because those fluffy red bits of the moth looked v-shaped to me, but I gave her a strap section over top to put in more of those rectangle shapes again. I made the shirt red to match that fluffy section. Like I said before, I wanted her to be a bit of a tomboy, so of course she's got to have army trousers with tons of pockets, which I tucked into big old boots, once again making sure to keep that square in mind. Face-wise, she of course has a very square face shape, which I think is what made me struggle to pick a hairstyle I liked. I don't often draw face shapes like this. She's got two moles under her eyes, again to look like the patterns on the moth, and a split eyebrow just because it felt like her vibe. I gave her a helix piercing and two black studs. Here's a little fun fact for you. MacLeod is actually trans, as is another member of the group you'll see in the next video. Female Io moths are just brown, whereas the males are orange, so I based off of a male instead. The same thing happened with the other trans girl too, where the female was just more boring looking. I did briefly debate on having some magical boys, but decided to just trans them instead. Colour-wise, she's almost entirely orange, since it was a pretty uniform moth, but with red and black accents here and there. For her magical design, I still wanted her to feel like the most tomboyish of the group, but didn't necessarily want to give her trousers. So she's got a lot of sporty accessories instead, with fingerless gloves, elbow pads, leggings and trainers. I wanted her to feel more practical and cool compared to how cutesy or pretty the other girls are. She's got the most extreme change in hair in the group, since I made it look like the moth's wings. Her black earrings were supposed to look like the eyes again when put in front of her hair. I think Io is the one with the most overt moth theming in general, because I also made her sleeves, her skirt overlayer, and her shoe decorations all have the wing patterns on them. Her skirt is pleated to mimic the lines of the moth's wings, and so are the soles of her shoes. Honestly, her dress was mostly made to keep her shape and general fashion sense in mind, so it's like a techno-ish pinafore with a half skirt, which I used to try and mimic the wings. If you're wondering, the catchlight in her eyes is a little square, and she's 5'8", which like I said before makes her the second tallest girl, and she's Thai. By the way, her spinning top does have a little Io moth on it, it's just really hard to see because it's tiny. I think that pretty much covers everything, so we're done with MacLeod. I'm pretty happy with how her civilian look came out. I think it gives a good impression of her character and is interesting enough to look at. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not really sure how I feel about her magical form. There are individual elements I like, but I'm not sure if it really feels unified or not. Let me know what you think. Honestly, it could just be that the struggle of doing the design is clouding my judgment. Also, is it just me, or does the navy background with the squares make her look weirdly techy? Reminds me of Techna from Winx a bit. I was just choosing it based off of what contrasted her colours the most, and putting her shape in, but it's giving graph paper a bit. For our last girl of this video, we have one I'm sure a lot of you have seen in pictures before, the Lunar Moth. They're a really beautiful moth with these wings that look like trailing ribbons. They make a clicking noise to deter predators and mess with bats' echolocation, and their long wings confuse predators. So I gave this gal a noisemaker, which disorientates her enemies and causes their vision to blur, and their senses to falter. I present Azalea Undergrove, otherwise known as Luna, and the Lancer of our group. The Lancer's job in the group is to be second in command and contrast the leader to balance out the group. They're usually the one that keeps the leader in check. They don't always have to be the rival, but often are. In this case, Azalea is very much a foil to Primrose and somewhat of a rival. She's the vice captain of the cheerleading team, despite being the more competent cheerleader based on skill alone out of the two, but she's not very personable, so just didn't get as many votes. Azalea's quite salty about this, as she had been captain the previous year and feels like the position should be based on skill, not how well liked someone is. So a lot of Primrose and her's early interactions have this underlying resentment at the core of them, where Azalea feels like Prim stole something from her that she deserved, which makes her very cold and snippy to Prim, which obviously makes Primrose dislike her back, and so the cycle of passive aggression continues. Over time, she come to realise that it's Primrose's people skills which make her excel as a leader, and not necessarily her skill in a given field. This is a really slow growing process for her, and I imagine that she wouldn't be hyper-friendly with Prim just because of this realisation. I think their friendship is the real slow burn kind of thing, like waiting for a half-feral cat to approach you first. Azalea is a ballet dancer and often skips cheer practice now that she's no longer captain in order to go to extra ballet classes. She's obsessed with getting into the best possible university for dance, so puts tons of pressure on herself to succeed in every aspect of her studies and clubs. She often overworks herself to the point of injury or exhaustion. In general, she has an incredibly strong belief in always giving 100% of effort into everything, thinking that anything less is a disservice to both that discipline and yourself. If you're not trying to be the best, you're not trying hard enough. This is also what drives her to become one of the top achieving students, studying extremely hard. She's definitely the type to accidentally pop an eye vessel from staring at her work for too long. While she has few friends due to her standoffish personality, she's quite admired around school for being so multi-talented. She's always fashionable, perfectly put together and elegant, which has earned her quite a few admirers for her cool and mature demeanour. Despite this, she's not actually particularly good at anything naturally, which only drives her to work even harder, almost feeling the need to overcompensate. She has pretty complicated feelings about her reputation, appreciating the respect and admiration it earns her, but also disliking that people are so quick to dismiss her hard work. This belief in always giving everything you've got also contributes to her initial dislike of Primrose, as she feels like Prim doesn't take anything seriously and only half-asses things, having no real passions or commitments to anything meaningful, only valuing childish fantasies and whatever things she thinks is fun in that moment. Azalea, as I said before, doesn't really have many friends due to this attitude of hers. She views her peers primarily as competition, never has any time to hang out, and has a hard time finding people who can overcome her initial iciness. She's quite anxious and cares a lot about how people think of her. Her perfectionism often causes her to not interact with people at all just to avoid messing it up. Unlike Marley though, she doesn't really consider herself lonely or in want of a friend. This is primarily because she's never really had many, so doesn't even know what she's missing until she joins the Moth group, and suddenly becomes aware of just how much she's been denying herself. Her arc is a lot about realising that she's putting way too much stress on herself, and that it's totally fine to put in more like 60 to 80% of effort into most things, and that currently she's just robbing herself of her childhood. Her friends don't care if she's perfect or cool or mature or the best, they just care that she's dedicated and kind. So why does she care so much? Basically learning to just enjoy being a kid and the childish things instead of forcing herself to grow up and be as adult as possible. As her alter ego, Luna, she manages to let some of her stress go. Being able to hide behind a mask and be anyone gives her the space to let her hair down a bit and just let herself be a kid a bit more, not worrying about every little thing and how she's perceived. Despite herself, she's charmed by Io and Rosy Maple's chaotic antics and dumb jokes, and quickly finds herself pulled into board games and D&D nights by them, but can't find it in her to care that they take away from the time she could be using to study or practice. Azalea also has a secret passion for writing, but struggles to ever do it because of her extreme perfectionism, instead just keeping tens of notebooks of extensive notes but no actual writing, being too scared of failure to even start to write. Once Prim finds out about this, she encourages her to do it anyway, because it's totally fine if she never wants anyone to see it, even Prim, but she shouldn't stop herself from doing something she likes. Azalea takes this to heart and starts writing again not long after. Eventually she makes Primrose her beta reader. Azalea insists on the title despite the fact that she doesn't post her work anywhere, because she's too embarrassed to simply admit that Prim is the only person she's comfortable with reading her stuff, and that she just likes to write stuff for Prim's eyes only. If it isn't obvious already, I kinda imagine Azalea and Primrose becoming a thing. Savfk undertones are basically a genre convention at this point for magical girls, and I do love a good opposites attract. I think their friendship is a slow burn kind of thing of them slowly beginning to recognise and appreciate each other's abilities and quirks, and then immediately afterwards developing crushes on each other, realising just how much they admire those qualities, A slowly and then all at once kind of thing, you know? Inversely, Marley and Azalea weirdly get along like a house on fire from the start. Everyone expects them to hate each other because they seem like such opposites, but they click really quickly. Turns out Azalea is also a regular at the cat cafes, even if she insists it's simply a better environment for studying, and the two start to go together frequently. They're both really passionate people and they bond over that drive. Azalea would take a misguided passion any day over apathy. Azalea became a magical girl after Aya was kidnapped by a henchman villain. Rosy Maple, feeling very helpless and having flashbacks to not being able to help the mysterious girl who gave her powers in the first place, panics and decides to ask the most responsible person she knows for help, Azalea. At first, Azalea thought it was just some weird joke or fantasy of Prim's, but went along anyway in case there was some basis of truth and someone was actually in danger. Upon transforming into Luna though, she realised that there was clearly more at play, and heard Rosy Maple out properly. Together the two saved Io, and Luna became a permanent fixture on the team, even with the constant bickering early on. She's very good at managing the other two's more chaotic tendencies and keeping a cool and level head in every environment. Her down-to-earthness is a valuable asset. Azalea definitely has my favourite civilian design out of the ones I've done so far, and overall I think she's the most recognisable moth. Her main shape is triangles, which I've incorporated pretty much everywhere in her design. I gave her a high bun shape to look like a tiara and tried to make the ends of her fringe match the spiral on the Luna moth. I'm gonna be so honest, I do not know the names for moth body parts and I refuse to look them up. Also, her hair ribbon ends in a point too. She's the tallest of the girls at 6 foot and I decided to make her lanky. If you're wondering, she's Dutch. I drew her civilian clothes as her ballet practice getup, since where she's constantly in and out of practices she often has it on. It's a black leotard with white tights and some overlay layers. I was going for a clean girl look with her, with old money vibes. She definitely feels like she's pretty well off. I made her shirt off the shoulder because the way the Luna moth's wings point down just really feels like it translates to off the shoulder looks. Obviously it's gathered to create a triangle in the middle. Also, is it just me or is there something butterfly-like about these gathered shirts? Maybe it's just because I see them in fairy call looks, but I don't know. Her skirt, of course, is made up of triangular shapes, and I gave her a bow on the side so that the ribbons could match the long wings of the moth. Accessory-wise, she's got a bag for her regular clothes, pointy black nails, a pearl necklace, and some dangly triangle earrings. Her ballet shoes also play into the triangles too, with the band on her ankle forming a point. I also gave her some subtle smoky eye and nude tone makeup. For her magical girl design, I actually softened her shapes a bit to reflect how she thought out a bit as Luna. I really wanted her to look like a ballerina, so of course I had to give her a tutu. Once again, it's an off-the-shoulder look, and I made the neckline mimic the shape of the front bit of the moth. Luna moths have a fluffy triangle thing on their head, which I copied for her choker and as a decoration on the top of her dress. I really want to play up the flowiness of the moth's wings, so she's got tons of bows with cascading ribbons and long flowy sleeves too. The bow on the back of her dress in particular was to copy the tail wings of the moth. Obviously she's got some ballet shoes again, and of course they also have bows. I put her hair up in these low buns that are shaped like little bows. I gave her some more bold makeup as Luna with green eyeshadow and spiralling eyelashes. Her nail colour changes to green too. Speaking of colours, yeah, she's mostly just various greens with black accents. I don't feel like there's much to say about it. Her hair colour changes when she transforms into a dark grey to better match the moth. I wanted both of her poses to feel very elegant and poised, with her civilian one also seeming a little closed off. This was honestly one of the easier designs, as I didn't really need to change much from my sketch concepts with her. Her eyeshine is a little star, like the ones in the background. Also, her earrings are supposed to sort of mimic these circular patterns on the lower rings. And with that, we're done with our final design. Like I said before, she definitely has my favourite civilian design so far. I think it's mostly just because of her fringe. I really like how that came out. I also think she's the most recognisable moth too. I kinda messed up her face a bit on the magical girl form though. Her eyes actually aren't the right shape and don't match how I drew them on her civilian form. So oops on that one. I also don't know if I like the loose hairs I gave her as Luna either. But of course, let me know what you guys think. Here are all three of the girls together. Let me know which design was your favourite. I actually found this to be pretty helpful in terms of my fear. At the very least, I stopped being bothered by my reference pictures after a bit, and didn't find similar pictures all that skin and crawly. Not sure how I'd feel about actually seeing them move though, that's a whole different beast. but I consider this a success in terms of progress to get over my fear. If you guys want to join in on this challenge by making characters based on your own phobias and fears, I think that'd be so cool, and who knows, it might end up helping you too. Anyway, if you like this video and want to see more like it but don't want to rely on the homepage suggesting my stuff again, maybe subscribe and check out my other videos. And be sure to stick around for part 2 where we'll finish our team and make the villain. It's been nice having you all around. I hope you drop by again.